Her breath caught as the last image loaded on the screen. The intimate photo of her husband and his stepmother. The one she never thought she'd see. The one she could never unsee. "You have to expose him," her stepmother's message read. "The family must know. Before we dive into this story, I need to know something. Have you ever faced a betrayal that shattered your trust? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if you've ever had to choose between love and loyalty, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The night had been almost perfect. Miranda stood at the edge of the grand dining room, her fingers lightly tracing the rim of her wine glass, trying to seem relaxed. The party buzzed with laughter, glasses clinking, the murmur of conversations mingling with the faint hum of Christmas carols playing in the background. The mansion was everything she'd ever dreamed of. Expensive, elegant, and everything her family would envy. The perfect place for her and Nathan to celebrate the holidays with his side of the family. But tonight something felt wrong. She glanced across the room at her husband, Nathan, who was laughing with his stepmother, Evelyn. Evelyn, blonde, tall, perfectly manicured, was everything Miranda wasn't. Graceful, poised, and always just a little too perfect. Nathan adored her, and though she never said it aloud, Miranda always felt a strange tension when Evelyn was around. She could never quite put her finger on it. "You okay, darling?" Miranda turned to find a hand resting lightly on her shoulder. It was Nathan's sister, Lauren. "Yeah, just taking it all in," Miranda smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off with Nathan. He'd been distant lately, like he was keeping something from her, something she wasn't supposed to see. But she wasn't about to ruin the night. Not with all of Nathan's colleagues in the room, not with his family watching. She forced a smile and raised her glass in a quiet toast to herself. She hadn't seen Evelyn approach. But suddenly, the woman's voice cut through the chatter. "Miranda, I just wanted to say how happy I am for you and Nathan. You've really brought a lot of joy to his life," Evelyn said, her eyes glinting with something Miranda couldn't read. "Thank you," Miranda replied, keeping her tone polite but distant. "I'm happy too." Evelyn's smile was warm, almost too warm. "Of course you are," she said lightly. "I do hope Nathan has been taking care of you, though. He can be distracted sometimes." Miranda's stomach tightened. Was Evelyn implying something? Her voice carried just the right amount of sweetness to make it sound innocent, but Miranda could tell she wasn't being entirely kind. Before she could respond, Nathan appeared at her side, sliding an arm around her waist. "What's going on here?" he asked with a playful smile. "Just admiring how stunning my sister-in-law is," Evelyn said, her eyes never leaving Miranda. Nathan chuckled, his fingers lightly brushing her side, but something about the way he held her felt distant, as if he was there but not quite there. His hand lingered for a moment too long before he pulled away, his eyes darting toward the back of the room, where his father was chatting with other guests. Miranda's heart sank. It wasn't that she didn't trust Nathan. She did most of the time, but lately, she'd felt like they were slipping apart. The late nights at the office, the half-hearted texts, the constant excuses about his family obligations that kept them from spending time together, it all weighed on her. Nathan was the love of her life, the man she'd married in a whirlwind romance, the man who'd swept her off her feet when she thought her life was heading in a different direction. She thought they had a partnership, two people supporting each other through thick and thin. But lately, Miranda couldn't help but feel like she was standing on the outside, looking in. The life they'd built was a carefully crafted facade, and she was the one holding it up while Nathan drifted further away. Miranda excused herself from the conversation, needing a moment to breathe. She stepped into the hallway, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. The party noise seemed muffled, like she was sinking deeper into a sea of confusion and doubt. She felt her phone vibrate in her clutch. It was a message from an unknown number. "You need to know the truth. You've been kept in the dark. Nathan isn't the man you think he is. I'm about to expose him. You deserve to know." Miranda's heart skipped a beat. Who is this? She stared at the screen, her fingers shaking as she typed back. Who are you? The reply was almost instant. I'm someone who knows. Nathan isn't loyal, Miranda. His stepmother has been keeping secrets, and it's time for you to know. Wait until you see what I have for you. Miranda's stomach clenched. What was this about? She felt her pulse quicken, and for a moment, the room seemed to spin around her. She couldn't even tell if she was angry or scared. Before she could process any more, her phone buzzed again. This time, the message came with an image, an intimate photo of Nathan, looking relaxed and completely unaware, with Evelyn standing far too close to him. The photo seemed innocent at first glance, but the closeness between them, the way Nathan's arm was around her, Miranda felt a knot twist in her stomach. The caption below the photo sent a cold chill down her spine. I think you need to see this. If you want the rest, meet me tomorrow. I'll show you everything. Miranda stared at her phone, her breath caught in her chest. The world around her seemed to fall away. She didn't know what to believe, but something inside her told her this was just the beginning. Evelyn, Nathan's stepmother. There had to be more to the story. With shaky hands, Miranda typed her reply, her voice steady despite the chaos inside her. Where and when? As she hit send, she could already feel the weight of what was about to unfold. This wasn't just about her marriage anymore. This was about something deeper, something she had no idea was lurking beneath the surface. And when the truth finally came to light, everything would change. But neither Miranda nor Nathan knew. This was only the beginning. Miranda didn't sleep that night. The photo kept replaying in her mind, over and over. She lay in bed beside Nathan, feeling the warmth of his body next to hers. But there was no comfort, no safety in his presence anymore. Every shift, every breath he took, only reminded her of the space between them. The soft hum of the city outside their window did nothing to quiet her racing thoughts. She kept staring at her phone screen, willing the image of Nathan and Evelyn to disappear. But no matter how many times she swiped, it remained. A constant, haunting reminder of the betrayal that lingered just beneath the surface. The next morning, Miranda found herself standing in front of a sleek cafe in downtown New York, the snow falling in delicate flurries around her. She hadn't meant to come here. She hadn't even meant to follow up on the message. But the need to know, to see what else was hidden from her, drove her forward. A figure in a dark coat stood by the entrance, watching her approach. Miranda's heart skipped. This was the person who had messaged her, the person who claimed to know everything. Her stomach churned with a mixture of fear and curiosity. The figure raised a hand, and she immediately recognized him as one of Nathan's old college friends, someone who had been close to the family. His face was familiar, but his eyes were different, cold, distant. Miranda, he greeted, his voice low, almost apologetic. Glad you came. She forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. You have something to show me. He nodded, looking around to make sure no one else was watching them. He pulled out his phone, and before she could ask another question, he handed it to her. Miranda took it, her breath shallow, as her fingers hovered over the screen. The photo that appeared was even worse than the first one. It wasn't just Nathan and Evelyn. This time they were alone, sitting at a private dinner, their faces too close, too comfortable, too intimate. Nathan had his hand on Evelyn's leg, their eyes locked in a way that made Miranda's stomach drop. Her fingers trembled as she swiped again. The next image was a video, a grainy recording of a late-night conversation. She could hear Evelyn's voice, clear and confident, whispering to Nathan, "You don't have to worry about Miranda. She's not what you need. I've always been here for you. You know that." Nathan's voice was quieter, distant. "I don't know anymore, Evelyn. Everything's complicated." Miranda froze, the words echoing in her mind. Everything's complicated. The knot in her chest tightened. Had Nathan ever felt this way about her? Was this how he saw their marriage? Had he been leaning on Evelyn all this time instead of her? The video ended abruptly, but Miranda couldn't move. The words kept circling her mind, too loud to ignore, too painful to process. "Why are you showing me this?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The man looked at her, his expression hard to read. "I'm showing you because you deserve to know the truth, Miranda. You deserve to know what Nathan's been hiding. Evelyn's been playing you both. She's been using Nathan for a long time, and now she wants him to choose. She's trying to take him away from you." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. Take him away from her? Miranda blinked, trying to hold herself together, but the tears stung at the corners of her eyes. "You should have told me sooner," she said, her voice tight with emotion. "You knew about this all along." The man didn't respond immediately. His gaze dropped to the floor. "I couldn't. I was too loyal to Nathan, to his family. But I couldn't stand watching you get hurt, either." Miranda took a deep breath. The weight of everything was starting to crush her. She had trusted Nathan with everything, given him her heart, her future, and now this? She felt betrayed by everyone. By Nathan, by his stepmother, even by the people who were supposed to be her friends. How could she have been so blind? "I don't know what to do with this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She handed him back his phone, feeling the crushing weight of uncertainty. "I didn't ask for this. I just wanted a family, a life I could believe in." The man sighed. "I'm sorry. I just thought you needed to know before you heard it from someone else." She nodded, though she didn't feel any better. In fact, the more she learned, the more lost she felt. It was one thing to be deceived, it was another to be publicly humiliated. Before she could say anything else, the man's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his eyes widening for a moment before he looked back at her. "I have to go," he said. "There's more you need to know. But it's not safe here." Miranda didn't know how long she stood in the cold before her legs finally carried her back to her car. She didn't even know where she was going. She just needed space, air, anything to breathe again. She drove aimlessly through the city, the streets becoming blurry under the weight of the emotional storm she was caught in. The images of Nathan with Evelyn, the words that had burned her from the inside, everything felt like it was closing in on her. "How could he do this to me?" she wondered as she wiped away the tears. "How could he lie to me for so long?" The questions piled up, and with each answer she received, the sense of betrayal deepened. But still, she couldn't bring herself to face Nathan yet. The rage was there, but it was tangled with something else. Something that hurt too much to untangle. She wasn't sure what she was waiting for anymore. But deep down, she knew that the worst part was yet to come. Later that evening, as she sat alone in her car, Miranda's phone buzzed once more. It was Nathan. He wanted to talk. The knot in her stomach tightened, and her heart began to race. But part of her knew that this conversation, this confrontation, was the only thing left to do. She was finally going to confront him, and when she did, everything would change. Pride is a liar, and theirs was about to cost them everything. Miranda didn't know how she ended up standing outside their penthouse door. The evening skyline spread out in front of her. The city was alive, buzzing with activity, but all she could feel was an overwhelming sense of numbness. She could hear Nathan inside, moving about, his footsteps light, his voice muffled. He hadn't noticed her yet. Her phone buzzed again in her pocket. It was him. "We need to talk. Please." She stared at the message, her hands shaking. Part of her wanted to turn and walk away. She wanted to pretend she hadn't seen the photos, the messages, everything that had shattered the trust she thought they'd built. Part of her just wanted to erase it all from her mind. But another part, no, the bigger part, knew she couldn't ignore it. The truth had already found its way into her life, and there was no going back. She let herself in, the door clicking softly behind her. Nathan didn't seem to notice her presence at first. He was standing by the kitchen counter, his back turned, sipping on a glass of whiskey. The low light from the overhead pendant lamps cast shadows on his face, but even in the dim light, she could see the weariness in his eyes. Nathan had always been the type of man who prided himself on his composure. But tonight he looked broken, and that stung more than any betrayal could. "Miranda," he said softly when he turned to face her. He didn't smile, didn't even look surprised. It was as if he had been waiting for this moment, but wasn't ready for it. "Do you really want to talk?" she asked, her voice steady, but the anger behind it made her words sharp. Nathan set the glass down, his gaze dropping to the floor. "I never wanted any of this. I never meant to hurt you, Miranda." Her chest tightened. She wanted to scream, to shout, to demand answers. But instead, she took a deep breath and asked the question she'd been avoiding. "Why, Nathan? Why her?" Her voice cracked, despite herself. Nathan's eyes flickered up to hers, and for the first time in weeks, she saw the vulnerability she had been looking for. "I don't know. I got lost, Miranda. I felt like I was slipping away, and Evelyn, she was there when I needed someone. It just happened. It shouldn't have, but it did." Miranda's hands clenched into fists at her sides. Slipping away? She had given him everything. Their life together wasn't perfect, but it was real. Or at least she thought it was. "You lied to me, Nathan. For months. You let me think everything was fine. You let me think I was enough for you." His voice dropped to a whisper. "You are enough. You've always been enough." The words hit her like a wave, crashing over her. But the sting of the betrayal was too raw to let the comfort in. She shook her head, stepping back. "If I was enough, you wouldn't have turned to her. You wouldn't have kept the secret from me." Nathan reached out, but she stepped back, putting distance between them. There was a look in his eyes, a desperate hope that she would forgive him. But Miranda wasn't sure she could anymore. She wasn't even sure if she wanted to. "You need to tell me everything," Miranda said, her voice hard now. "I want the truth. No more lies, Nathan." He closed his eyes, exhaling slowly, as if bracing himself for what was to come. I wasn't just confiding in Evelyn. I slept with her. More than once." The words cut through her like a knife. She wasn't shocked. Part of her had known. But hearing him say it out loud felt like a punch to the gut. She felt sick, like everything in her world had shifted out of place. Her breath hitched in her throat. She hadn't expected this. Not like this. "Why now?" she whispered. "Why are you telling me this now, Nathan?" "Because I can't keep hiding it. It's eating me up inside. I've hurt you, and I can't go on pretending like nothing's wrong. You deserve the truth, Miranda." The room felt smaller, the weight of his confession hanging in the air between them. But Miranda was done. The cracks in their relationship were too deep, too jagged. She could feel herself starting to break beneath the pressure. "Do you love her?" she asked before she could stop herself. The question felt like it had been waiting on the tip of her tongue all night. He paused, his face etched with guilt. "I don't know. I don't know what I feel anymore. But I do know that I love you. I always will." Tears welled up in her eyes, and she wiped them away quickly. But the damage had been done. Nathan had broken her heart, and no amount of apologies could fix it now. He took a step closer to her, but Miranda held up a hand to stop him. "You can't fix this, Nathan," she said, her voice trembling. "You don't get to just say you love me and make it go away. You chose her. You chose to betray me." There was silence between them. It felt like the world had come to a halt, like everything was frozen in time. Miranda stood there, her heart pounding in her chest. Every part of her wanted to run, to get away from this, to get away from him. But she couldn't run from the truth. Not anymore. Nathan opened his mouth to speak again, but she shook her head. "I need time, Nathan. I need to think. I can't do this right now." He nodded, his face pale, like all the color had drained from it. "I understand." Miranda turned away from him, not knowing what she was doing or where she was going. But she couldn't stay there. Not like this. She grabbed her coat, her hands shaking as she buttoned it up. The cold air outside was a shock, but it didn't matter. She walked down the empty street, the city lights blurring around her. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew one thing for sure. Nothing would ever be the same again. Miranda paused in the middle of the street, her eyes scanning the city ahead of her. She wasn't sure if she was running away or running toward something, but she couldn't shake the feeling that Evelyn's influence on Nathan was only the beginning. And the worst part? She wasn't sure if she wanted to fight for their marriage anymore. But neither of them knew. Their paths had crossed for the last time. Miranda hadn't expected to run into Nathan again so soon. Not like this. Not after everything that had happened. But here they were, in the sterile conference room of his company's headquarters, the marble floors gleaming beneath their feet. Nathan's assistant had called her this morning. Said it was urgent. Could you please meet Nathan? He needs to talk. She had half a mind to ignore the message, to stay as far away from him as possible. But a part of her, the part that still wanted answers, had pushed her forward. The cold steel door closed behind her, and she was faced with Nathan, sitting at the head of the conference table. His posture was rigid, his face pale as if he hadn't slept in days. There was something in his eyes, something that made Miranda pause. He looked almost desperate. "Miranda," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking any louder would break the fragile moment between them. I didn't know where else to turn. Miranda folded her arms, standing across from him. She could feel the tension in the room, heavy, thick like the air before a storm. "You're the one who walked away from me, Nathan," she said, the bitterness creeping into her words. "You don't get to turn around now and expect me to fix everything. I can't just pretend like this didn't happen. I can't act like nothing's wrong." His eyes flickered with guilt. He didn't say anything at first, but the silence hung between them like a wall. The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the quiet room. "I'm not asking you to fix it," he finally said, his voice strained. "I'm asking you to listen. Just hear me out." Miranda didn't move. She crossed her legs and tilted her head, watching him carefully. "Go ahead," she said, her voice colder than she intended. He swallowed hard, his hand rubbing the back of his neck, a nervous gesture she knew too well. "I know I don't deserve this, but I've been thinking about everything, about what happened, about how I hurt you, and I need you to understand. I never wanted this." Miranda clenched her jaw. She wanted to scream at him. How could he stand there, looking so defeated when it was his actions that had brought them to this point? But she held it in, her emotions rising to the surface like a tide. "You don't want this?" she repeated, her voice a little louder now. "You don't want this? Nathan, you destroyed everything we had. You tore us apart. I thought we were building a life together. I thought we were partners." "I know," he said quickly. "I know. I was selfish. I let the stress get to me, and Evelyn. She was there when I needed someone. But it was a mistake. The worst mistake of my life." Her heart twisted. Part of her wanted to believe him. Part of her wanted to believe that Nathan had made a mistake, that he still loved her and would fight for them. But the other part, the part that had been wounded so deeply, couldn't trust him anymore. "Why did you do it?" she asked softly, the words almost a plea. "Why her, Nathan?" He closed his eyes, his shoulders sagging as if the weight of the question had crushed him. "Because I didn't know how to deal with the pressure. I thought I could handle it, but couldn't. And when Evelyn started offering comfort, I let myself believe it was real. I was wrong, Miranda. So wrong." He looked up at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and desperation. "I love you. I always have. I can't lose you. Please, I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. Just don't give up on me." Miranda's breath caught in her throat. She had heard him say the words before. She had heard him say he loved her. But those words felt hollow now, empty. It wasn't just about the love anymore. It was about trust. And trust, once broken, was nearly impossible to rebuild. "Do you understand, Nathan?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Do you understand how much you've hurt me? How much you've shaken everything I thought I knew? You didn't just make a mistake. You chose her. You chose her over me." He flinched, his face going pale. But before he could speak, she raised her hand, signaling for him to stop. "You've had your chance to explain. Now it's my turn," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Miranda's heart ached as the words came rushing out. "I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't know if I can trust you again. And I'm scared, Nathan. I'm scared of what this means for us. For me." I don't know if we can survive this. I don't know if I can survive this. The tears threatened to spill, but she fought them back, staring him down as if daring him to make it worse. Nathan's face softened, and he stepped forward, slowly, as if testing the waters. Miranda, please. I can't imagine my life without you. You mean everything to me. This isn't just about me anymore. It's about us. What we built together. Miranda stood still, her hands trembling at her sides. The battle inside her was fierce, like two forces pulling her in opposite directions. She could feel herself cracking under the pressure. But before she could say anything else, Nathan reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. I've been holding on to this. I wanted to give it to you earlier, but I didn't know if it was too late. Miranda took the envelope from him, her heart pounding. Her name was written across it in Nathan's familiar handwriting. She looked up at him, confusion in her eyes. I think you need to see it, he said, his voice soft. It's the last thing I can do to show you that I'm sorry. Miranda hesitated, the envelope heavy in her hands. She knew what was inside. More apologies, more empty promises. But something in Nathan's eyes told her that this time was different. She tore the envelope open, her heart racing as she pulled out the contents. But what she found inside would change everything. Miranda stood at the edge of the patio, her fingers gripping the cool railing. The party inside raged on, but she could barely hear the laughter anymore. Her mind was miles away, lost in the conversation she'd just had with Jason. The words echoed in her head, each one sharper than the last. You're mine, Miranda, Jason had said, his voice low and controlled, a warning wrapped in a smile. You don't get to walk away from this. The cold night air brushed her skin, but it wasn't enough to cool the fire burning inside her. How had it come to this? How had she allowed herself to be hidden, kept in the shadows for so long? Are you really going to let him control you forever? The voice broke her from her thoughts. Miranda turned to find Alexander standing behind her, a few feet away. He hadn't even made a sound. She could feel the weight of his presence, the way he seemed to fill the space around him with quiet strength. I'm sorry, she said, her voice coming out softer than she intended. I didn't mean to interrupt your night. Alexander shook his head, taking a step closer. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes, something raw, almost vulnerable. You're not interrupting. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. Miranda swallowed hard. She didn't know why, but the way he said those words, the concern in his voice, it made her feel like maybe someone actually cared. She turned back toward the lights of the city in the distance, the hustle and bustle that felt so far from her life right now. I'm fine, she said, even though she didn't feel fine. Not at all. Alexander was quiet for a moment before speaking again. You don't have to do this, you know. You don't have to stay in a situation that makes you unhappy. Miranda shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. It's not that simple. My whole life has been built on this. On him. On what? Fear? Control? Alexander's voice was sharper now, but still gentle. He wasn't judging her. Felt like he was simply stating a truth. She felt a rush of emotion rise in her chest. A mix of anger, confusion, and desperation. I don't know how to let go. I don't know how to walk away. Maybe you don't have to walk away, Alexander said, his tone quiet but steady. Maybe you just need to turn around and face him. Face yourself. The words hit her harder than she expected. She turned to look at him, their gazes locking for the briefest of moments. There was something familiar in the way he spoke, a sense of deep understanding. He wasn't offering her an easy way out. He was simply telling her the truth. Miranda looked away, blinking back the tears that threatened to fall. She could feel the walls around her cracking, each word he spoke pulling them down just a little bit more. I don't know if I can, she whispered. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You are, Alexander said firmly. You've been strong enough for a long time. You just need to remember that. His words hung in the air between them, like a lifeline she wasn't sure she was ready to reach for. But in that moment, she realized something. Jason had kept her in the dark for years. But Alexander was offering her a light, a way out. Before she could say anything else, the sound of footsteps echoed on the patio. Jason appeared in the doorway, his face a mixture of anger and confusion. "What's going on out here?" he demanded, his eyes flicking between Miranda and Alexander. Miranda stiffened, her heart hammering in her chest. She could feel the tension building, thick and suffocating. Jason's presence always had this effect on her, like a weight pressing down on her chest. Alexander stood his ground, not backing away. "She's just getting some air." Jason's eyes narrowed. "I didn't ask you, did I?" His tone was low and menacing, and Miranda could feel the threat hanging in the air. "Jason," Miranda said, her voice trembling, "I need to go. I need to get away from here." For a second, it looked like Jason was going to argue, but then something in his eyes shifted. Maybe it was the realization that his control was slipping, or maybe it was the look on Miranda's face, but he didn't push it. "Fine," he said, his voice tight. "Go. But don't think this is over." Miranda didn't say anything else. She didn't look back as she turned to walk away, but she could feel the weight of both men's gazes on her. She stepped out of the party and into the night, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and anticipation. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of freedom, but she knew it wasn't going to be easy. The next morning, Miranda sat at her kitchen table, the sunlight spilling through the windows. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Jason. "Where are you? You know I can find you." She didn't respond. The thought of going back to him, to the life he'd built for her, it made her stomach twist. She had been living in his shadow for so long, letting his words control her, letting him decide her worth. But no more. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. She hesitated, wondering if it was Jason. But when she opened it, it wasn't him. It was Alexander. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice soft but steady. She nodded slowly, stepping aside to let him in. They sat at the table, the silence between them thick with unspoken words. Finally, Miranda spoke. "I don't know what I'm doing, Alexander." "You're doing what's right for you," he said. "And that's enough." Miranda looked at him, her heart still unsure but her mind more certain than it had been in years. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I know. But you don't have to be alone in this." She looked at him then, really looked at him. For the first time, she saw him not as a stranger, but as someone who understood her, who saw her. And in that moment, Miranda realized that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to face everything alone. But as the door closed behind them, Miranda couldn't shake the feeling that Jason wasn't done with her yet, and the battle was far from over. Miranda stood in the quiet of her apartment, the weight of her decision pressing down on her chest. The sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting long shadows across the room. It felt like a new day, but she wasn't sure if she was ready to face it. The text from Jason still lay unanswered on her phone, its threat hanging over her like a dark cloud. She glanced at the clock on the wall. It was almost time for her to meet Alexander at the cafe. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she knew one thing for sure. She couldn't go back to the life she'd been living. Not after everything that had happened. The doorbell rang. Miranda's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment, she thought it might be Jason. But when she opened the door, she found Alexander standing there, his expression soft but unreadable. "Hey," he said quietly, stepping inside when she didn't say anything. "I thought we could talk." She nodded, stepping aside to let him in. The room felt too small, too quiet, with both of them standing there. She couldn't help but feel the tension between them, the unspoken words that hung in the air. "I'm sorry," Alexander said after a beat, his voice low, "for showing up like this. I wanted to make sure you're okay." Miranda took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She wasn't sure if she was okay, but she didn't know how to say that without sounding like she was falling apart. "I don't know what to do," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I've spent so long just following his rules. Now, I'm scared I won't be able to find my own way." Alexander walked toward her, but stopped a few feet away, giving her space. "Miranda, you're not alone. You don't have to carry this on your own." She looked up at him, and for the first time, she saw him not as the confident CEO, but as a man who truly cared. "I don't know how to stop being scared," she admitted. His eyes softened, and he took a step closer, his voice gentle. "You don't have to do it all at once. Just take it one step at a time." Miranda's mind raced. Could she really leave Jason? Could she really turn her back on everything she knew? She didn't have the answers, but part of her was starting to believe that she didn't have to. A loud knock on the door shattered the moment. Miranda's breath caught in her throat. She knew who it was without having to look. "Miranda!" Jason's voice called out from the other side, sharp and demanding. "I know you're in there. Open the door." Miranda froze, her heart pounding in her chest. For a moment, she thought about ignoring him, but something in her chest twisted, and she found herself walking toward the door. Alexander stepped forward, his body tense. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "I have to," she whispered, her voice barely audible. She opened the door, and Jason stood there, his eyes cold, angry. "Where the hell have you been?" he demanded. "You think you can just walk away? You're mine, Miranda." Miranda swallowed hard, her voice shaking. "I'm not yours. Not anymore." The words felt like a weight lifting from her chest. Jason's eyes narrowed. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." Miranda took a step back, her pulse quickening. But Alexander was right there beside her, a silent force of support. "I think it's already hard," Alexander said, his voice firm. "And it's about to get harder for you if you don't leave." Jason looked at him, disbelief flickering in his eyes. "Who the hell do you think you are?" "I'm someone who's not going to let you control her anymore," Alexander said, his voice steady. "And if you're smart, you'll walk away." For a moment, Jason stood still, his jaw clenched, his anger building. Then, with a harsh exhale, he turned and walked away, his footsteps heavy on the ground as he left. Miranda stood in the doorway, her heart still racing. She couldn't believe it. It was over. Jason was finally gone. But the relief she expected didn't come. Instead, she felt a cold emptiness settle in her chest. "Are you okay?" Alexander asked softly, his hand hovering near her arm but not quite touching her. Miranda nodded, though she wasn't sure if she was telling the truth. "I think I am," she said, her voice low. Alexander didn't say anything, just stood there beside her, letting the silence stretch between them. He didn't push her, didn't rush her. He simply waited, and for the first time in a long time, Miranda felt like she had the space to breathe. Later that evening, Miranda sat alone on the couch, her mind spinning. Jason's words still echoed in her head, his anger, his control. But she knew now that she wasn't the same woman she'd been when she walked into this apartment. She'd taken a step, a small one, but it was enough to change everything. Her phone buzzed on the table, a new message from Jason. She stared at the screen, her finger hovering over the text. But before she could read it, the phone rang, a name flashing across the screen. It was him, Jason. She hesitated, her heart pounding, then picked up the phone, her hand shaking. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "You really think it's over?" Jason's voice was a low growl, threatening. "You can't run from me. You'll always be mine." Miranda's stomach turned. She could hear the familiar venom in his voice, but this time, it didn't scare her. This time, it only made her angry. "I'm not yours," she said, her voice firm. "Not anymore. I'm done." She ended the call before he could say anything else. As the silence settled in the room, Miranda felt a strange sense of peace, and a new kind of fear. She was free, but what would her next step be? The phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Jason's name on the screen. It was an unknown number. She picked it up, heart racing, wondering if this was the call that would change everything again. Miranda sat at her kitchen table, the phone still buzzing on the counter. The unknown number kept calling, each buzz louder than the last. She had turned off the ringer, but it didn't stop the silent vibration from shaking her chest. Her thoughts were a blur. Jason's threats, Alexander's quiet presence, and the feeling of something shifting in her, deep inside. Everything was happening too fast, and yet, for the first time in years, it felt like it was happening for the right reasons. She hadn't answered the phone. Part of her wanted to. Maybe it was Jason, desperate to claim her again. Maybe it was someone else, a reminder that the life she'd known was still waiting for her. But as the phone buzzed again, she pushed it aside, taking a deep breath. I'm not that woman anymore. The knock at the door startled her. She hadn't been expecting anyone. For a second, she wondered if it was Jason again, if he had come to her apartment to try to pull her back into his world. But when she opened the door, it wasn't Jason. It was Alexander. His face was calm, but his eyes held something else. A quiet urgency, a strength that she didn't realize she needed until now. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice soft, but it carried weight. She nodded, stepping aside to let him in. They sat down in the living room, both of them unsure of what to say. It was like the silence between them had become a language of its own. A space where they didn't need to explain everything. They simply understood. "I've been thinking about you," Alexander said after a long pause, his voice low, "about what you're going through, and what you deserve." Miranda swallowed, her heart tightening. "I don't know if I deserve anything," she whispered. "Don't say that," he said quickly, his gaze steady. "You deserve peace. You deserve to be free. And you don't have to do this alone." Her chest tightened. Peace. The word had felt like a foreign concept for so long. She hadn't known what it felt like to be free, to make her own choices without fear of someone else's control. But Alexander was offering her something. Not promises, but something real. A chance to heal. "I'm scared, Alexander," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to move forward." "You don't have to have it all figured out right now," he replied, his tone gentle but firm. "It's okay to be scared. It's okay to not have all the answers. But you're not alone. Not anymore." Miranda closed her eyes, a wave of emotion crashing over her. It wasn't just his words. It was the way he said them, like he truly believed in her, like he wasn't just offering her hope, but giving her permission to take the next step. "I don't know what to do," she said again, her voice shaking. "Jason won't just let me go. I've spent so long letting him control me. I don't know what's left when I try to walk away." Alexander's hand hovered near hers, then gently brushed against her fingers. She didn't pull away. "You've been living in his shadow for too long. You don't have to carry it anymore." For the first time in a long time, Miranda felt like she was breathing, really breathing. The weight that had been on her chest, pressing down on her heart, wasn't gone, but it had shifted. She wasn't holding it alone anymore. "I'm here," he said quietly, his words steady, like a promise. Miranda felt something inside her stir, a deep yearning she hadn't allowed herself to feel for years. She looked at Alexander, really looked at him, and saw the sincerity in his eyes. Her phone buzzed again, cutting through the moment, dragging her back to reality. She glanced at the screen. Another text from Jason. "Where are you? I'm coming for you." Her stomach turned. It was happening again. The cycle she had been caught in for so long was starting all over. He wouldn't give up. Not so easily. "Miranda." Alexander's voice was a soft plea, drawing her back to the present. She looked at him again, and for a split second, she saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes. It wasn't about her. It was about the weight of the choices they were both facing. "I can't go back to him," Miranda whispered, her voice breaking. "I won't let him drag me back into that life." "I know you won't," Alexander said, his voice firm. "You don't have to." Miranda reached for her phone, her fingers trembling. She didn't look at the text. Instead, she sent a new message, this one to Jason. "I'm done. You don't control me anymore." She hit send. Her heart was pounding in her chest as the words hit the screen. She couldn't take them back. There was no going back now. The seconds felt like hours as she waited for a response. Her breath caught as the screen blinked, a new message coming in. But before she could read it, she heard the sound of footsteps outside the door. Someone was coming. The doorbell rang again. Miranda's heart stopped for a moment. This time it wasn't Jason. The footsteps outside were too fast, too insistent. They weren't the slow, deliberate steps of someone who was trying to intimidate her. Miranda stood up, her hands shaking. She wasn't ready. Not for whatever was on the other side of that door. But when the door opened, it wasn't the person she expected. And what he said next would change everything. Miranda's heart pounded as she slowly opened the door. She wasn't sure what to expect, but the last person she wanted to see was Jason. Her mind raced with every possibility, every worst-case scenario. The last thing she wanted was to fall back into that life, the life where she was invisible, controlled, afraid. But when the door swung open, it wasn't Jason standing there. It was someone else, someone she hadn't seen in years. Her breath caught in her throat. It was her sister, Emma. "Miranda," Emma said, her voice a mixture of relief and worry. "I've been trying to reach you. Are you okay?" Miranda stood frozen in the doorway, shock written all over her face. She hadn't spoken to Emma in months. Their relationship had become strained over the years, especially after Miranda had married Jason. Emma had always disapproved of the way Jason treated her, but Miranda had pushed her away. She didn't want to hear it. Now, standing face to face with Emma, all the walls Miranda had built around herself started to crack. She felt a rush of emotions she wasn't ready to confront. Guilt, regret, sadness. I don't know," Miranda whispered, her voice barely audible. Emma stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. She closed the door behind her and looked at Miranda, her eyes soft but intense. "I've been watching you, Miranda. I know something's wrong. And I'm here now. Whatever's going on, we'll figure it out together." For the first time in what felt like forever, Miranda felt the warmth of someone truly caring about her. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. She felt her chest tighten, the weight she'd been carrying for so long threatening to crush her. "I've been so lost, Emma," Miranda confessed, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't know who I am anymore. I've been stuck in this prison with Jason. And now I'm scared I won't be able to get out." Emma reached out, pulling her sister into a tight embrace. "You're not stuck. You're not alone, Miranda. You don't have to do this on your own." The comfort of Emma's arms wrapped around her was enough to break Miranda's defenses. She let out a shaky breath, her tears falling freely now. The dam had broken, and all the pain she had tried to bury for so long came flooding to the surface. "I was so scared to lose everything," Miranda whispered, her voice muffled against Emma's shoulder. "But I was losing myself in the process." Emma pulled back slightly, looking Miranda in the eyes. "You never had to lose yourself, and you don't have to keep running from him. You're stronger than that. You've always been stronger than you think." Miranda nodded, wiping her tears away. It was true. She had been running for so long, hiding, pretending. She had convinced herself that she couldn't escape, that there was no way out. But Emma was right. She was stronger than she realized. She had always had the power to change things. She just needed to believe it. Her phone buzzed again, but this time, Miranda didn't hesitate. She picked it up, her hand steady now. It was Jason. The familiar dread rose in her chest. But this time, it didn't paralyze her. She was ready. She was done letting him control her. With a deep breath, Miranda typed out her response. "I'm done. I'm not coming back. I've made my choice." She hit send. The moment the words were out there, Miranda felt a sense of finality. No more waiting. No more wondering what could have been. She had taken the first step toward her freedom. The phone buzzed again almost immediately. Jason's message was short, cold. "You'll regret this. You'll never get away from me." Miranda stared at the message, her heart pounding. It stung, but she didn't feel the same fear she had before. She wasn't afraid of him anymore. His words no longer held the weight they once did. She turned off her phone and looked at Emma, who was watching her carefully. "You're really done, aren't you?" Emma asked, a gentle smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. Miranda nodded, a sense of peace settling over her. "I am." Later that evening, Miranda sat with Alexander at a small cafe on the corner of a quiet street in the city. It was a place that felt far removed from everything she had left behind, a place that felt like a fresh start. She looked across the table at him, feeling a warmth in her chest she hadn't expected. He had been her support, her anchor, through the storm, but now it felt like something more. There was an understanding between them, an unspoken connection that ran deeper than either of them had anticipated. "I'm proud of you," Alexander said, his voice soft but filled with meaning. Miranda smiled, her heart swelling. "I'm proud of myself too," she said, the words feeling strange but right. "I didn't think I could do this, but here I am." He reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "You don't have to do it alone anymore." She squeezed his hand, feeling something shift inside her. It wasn't just about escaping her past anymore. It was about embracing her future, a future where she was in control, a future where she could love, laugh, and live freely, without fear. The warmth of his hand in hers was more than just a gesture. It was a promise. Miranda took a deep breath, letting the moment sink in. There was no more hiding, no more running. She was here now, standing in the light of her own life. As they sat there together, the city lights twinkling outside the cafe window, Miranda knew that this was just the beginning. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but for the first time in a long time, she felt ready for whatever came next. She was free, and that was enough. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.